Red Faction was developed by Volition and released in 2001 by THQ for the Sony PlayStation 2, as well as on computer. This is one of those games that I just walked into the store, took one look at the game box, rolled the dice, and decided to purchase without reading any reviews or anything. I know, crazy, right? The back of the box touted something totally new called geomod technology, which allowed for physical damage to your environment. That was enough to sell me. This is still one of my favorite sleeper hits for the PS2. The story takes place in the year 2075. You play as Parker, some guy with a square face who got duped into taking an awful mining job on Mars. Lured into the position with promises of good pay and an easy retirement, Parker and several others quickly realized it was all a ruse.
Man, was I a fool. Life in the mines is hell. I haven't had a minute to myself since I got here. You're jammed 8 to a room, time-sharing your bunks. Conditions are barely livable, and the guards are everywhere. Ultor doesn't care if we live or die. We're at the breaking point.
Miserable working conditions, long hours, cramped living spaces, a plague mysteriously killing off workers, and abusive guards that won't let you leave. No, it's not Apple, it's the Ultor Corporation. A rebellion starts to secretly form among the miners called the Red Faction, and a series of events at the beginning with a guard murdering a miner ends up being the spark that swings the rebellion into full motion. And rebellion is picking up every gun and health pack in sight and murdering anything that moves in first-person shooter mayhem.
Party time! Ah! Oh! Ah! Ah! Where's
If the story sounds familiar, that's because it's basically Total Recall. No, not that thing. The real Total Recall from 1990 starring Arnold Schwarzenegger at the peak of his powers. Okay, so it doesn't have the stuff about implanted memories, but it's set in the future where Mars is colonized and there are harsh living conditions which lead to a rebellion. A lot of the action takes place in the underground mines of Mars. The villain Cohagen and his corrupt company may as well be the Ultor Corporation. Heck, at one point in the game you even get to drive the giant mechanized drill that's totally straight from the movie. And this is so great. So I mentioned the geomod technology, and that's what separates this game from other first-person shooters of the time. See a locked door you can't get around? Well, you could search around aimlessly like a jerk for a key or switch or something, or you could just tunnel around it with your giant mechanized drill, or rocket launchers, or whatever you can find. The point is, you can actually do physical damage to the environment around you, depending on how powerful your weapon is. To be honest, this was half the fun. I remember after clearing out the bad guys in the mines, I'd just spend an hour or two messing around with rocket launchers, blowing holes in the wall or making tunnels for no reason. It was just fun. Think of it like Bass Ackwards Minecraft. I swear, one time I made a tunnel so long that I ended up tunneling through to a hollowed out cave full of molten lava, like it was the planet's core or something, and then I fell in and died. But I couldn't find that spot today, and maybe that's just a false memory, who knows. As for the rest of the game, well, it's a first-person shooter, intuitive and easy-to-use controls, lots of weapons to cause chaos, very smooth graphics, and a rock techno soundtrack that's good enough to set the mood. Also, you can do this. One neat thing is the game doesn't really have cutscenes per se. All of the story progression and dialogue scenes happen right within the game's engine. There's no clear-cut end of level like in Doom or other games of this ilk, where you have to stop and kind of reset the action. You just keep going. Occasionally this game will pause enough to load the next area off of the disc, but other than that there are no breaks in the action, which helps add to the urgency of the game's rebellion and escape story. You just want to keep moving.
All miners are ordered to lay down their weapons and report to the nearest security checkpoint. You will not be harmed.
Uh-huh, sure. Occasionally you'll run across civilians that work for Ultor. You can holster your weapon and they may assist you, or not.
Move on, I have wounded to attend to.
I I felt like the ratio of bad guys to weapons and health was just right. Overall, it's tons of fun to play through and still enjoyable to pick up and play today, although I will say there's not much to this game. It's the kind of game you play through once and then you're probably done with it. That's not a bad thing at all, but if you're looking for replay value, there's not much to do once you get through the story, and I never really felt compelled to play through it all over again once I got to the end. This game spawned several sequels, which I never really got into either. I always felt like it was good enough as a standalone game, but maybe I'm off base with that. I don't know. Did you ever play the sequels, and did I miss anything good with those? Perhaps part of the reason this game doesn't necessarily spark a need to replay it is that by the end of the game, the levels go from underground mine caverns to just your standard industrial type levels, and the destructible backgrounds aren't really a thing anymore. They made a really big deal about this geomod technology, and then it seemed like it just only really got used heavily in the first areas of the game where you're in the mines. After that, it just kind of morphs into every other first-person shooter around with offices or futuristic military base type levels where the walls are metal or concrete and seemingly indestructible. They're not bad at all, but nothing about these really stand out much from any of the other first-person shooters out there. So by the time you get to the end of the game, you've enjoyed the ride, but you're just ready to move on. Still though, I feel like it's one of the best PS2 first-person shooters that doesn't get talked about enough. I definitely recommend checking it out if you missed it the first time and are a fan of the genre. What do you think? Did you play this one when it came out? Thank you for watching and see you next time on Friday Night Arcade.
No! Let's go.